another good thing that comes out of this. But as middle school, we're trying to keep them the same. But when they return to high school, the zones will stay the same. So where you live is where you'll go to high school. And so for those middle schools, it's not so much important to change the zones. It's actually more important to keep the kids together as much as we can to keep that consistent. Yes, ma'am.
I also want to thank you for coming to Florence and you and the board doing the great job that you're doing. My question is about security, and I'm going to use West Florence for an example because I know that school from way back. How do you secure a school with, 50 doors?
Yeah, there's probably more than that, but yes,
yeah.
We'll use that as a good number.
Yeah, yeah.
It's hard. I mean, I've got 528 kids in mobiles outside. So, I mean, that's a school in itself outside. With a campus that kids kind of go in and out because they leave early to go Francis Marion or Florence Darlington Tech, or they go to the Career Center. It's hard. I'm not going to lie to you. I think the most important part of security that I think most people across the country are learning, unfortunately, through a lot of these tragedies, is we've got to know our kids. Because guess what? It's our kids killing kids. It's not the intruders outside or the people. It's our kids. So part of this puzzle is the mental health part of just getting to know our kids and understand our kids, and our guidance counselors being part of that security process. So we can do all those things. I can put metal detectors and all those things. And all those schools have it that had shootings. It's about knowing our kids and having relationships. We put security guards on top of the police car so they can walk about the schools. They have iPads. They can see all the cameras no matter where they are. But for me, it's about those relationships with those security guards can have with our kids to stop those things from happening or to understand those things. And I think that, to me, is probably far more important than the metal detectors that we put into schools and things like that. And that takes time. And also, it's a culture that you're building. And you see that within all 3 high schools, that culture of taking care of our schools and the camaraderie about our kids working together. So that's probably the best way I can answer that question of what we're trying to do on both fronts of what we're trying to do overall. But the schools are not designed for the way schools are supposed to be today. But we do our best to lock doors. We check those doors. We have people all over. We have people in the front. We have metal detectors. We're going to be getting new metal detectors that help in those situations as well. But I think that's the one thing, message that gets lost in all this is about kids killing kids, and it's about us understanding those kids more importantly than anything else. Yes,
I'm so glad to hear about all these improvements. I think it's wonderful. I'm also equally concerned about some of the neighboring districts and kids that aren't technically ours, part of this district. And it's important for me to think about being a good neighbor. So what's our relationship like with the other districts and ways that we can help them see some of these same improvements?
I'm not going to presume to answer all parts of your question. So you're talking about consolidation, or are you talking about?
Well, just, I've got connections with, the Florence community is always bigger than the Florence community. I mean, so my address.
I think it's actually
right.
small, rather.
But so my address is Effingham. So like I live in one place, I work in some place, I care for kids over here, I care for kids over here. And so it's exciting to see things like this that are working well here, that I'm hoping that has effects on other areas. And I was just curious if there's specific things that you envision as possibilities.
I'm struggling just to take care of everyone here, but I think as superintendents in the other Florence districts, we have a contractual relationship with Florence 4, which is Timmonsville. We take care of their HR, those kinds of things. So we have that relationship. They're part of our school district in a sense. They come to our meetings and those kinds of things. So we've got a relationship there. They only have 150 high school kids in Florence 4. You think about that. But the other superintendents I meet with, we started with adult education, partnering that we're being the hub and providing that for all of Florence. We're hiring a procurement officer. That's someone who in finance does all the bids and does those kinds of things, and we're allowing them to work with us we're hiring that person, but they'll do that. So we're starting to do those things. We're starting to procure things like technology for them. But my focus is my kids here in these schools, trying to make it work. Because I'm here listen, I come from New Jersey. We're usually number 1 or number 2 in education. I do not like to lose. You can ask anyone that works for me. I am not second place is happiness. So I am competing against the nation. I am not competing against anyone in South Carolina. That is my goal. That is what I'm driven to do. That's what I know I'm going to do here. And I think that's really the focus. So anybody that wants to come along for the ride, I'm willing to let them jump on the train. But this is our train, and it's going to the top of the mountain. Anyone else?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick story to share. Today I was at Timrod. I'm a member of a local Kiwanis club. We sponsor a program called Terrific Kids. And at Timrod today, they were so excited about their progress, as you've reported here, getting to that excellent mark. But you can see it on the faces of the parents, the kids, the teachers. Shout out to Mrs. McBride, the principal, Ms. Muldrow there. And so I hear it and see it on the report, but today I experienced it at Timrod.
Thank you, and that's really what we need to do. Is it's a lot of education. If you have your own kids, is about one word: confidence. Confidence in the ability to do things, and that confidence, whether it's your teacher and a student, or a student in what they're doing, or the principal, it just builds and it's just contagious and it flows very quickly. So we're excited.
I have one question. Besides being good parents and getting our kids to school healthy and happy, for a community, as a community member, what is 1 or 2 things we can do to encourage this progress in Florence? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's
Okay.
probably the one thing I would say that I personally get frustrated with. I think the number one thing I can ask everyone in this room is, and how I started is, to start telling the naysayers who don't want, quite frankly, the school district to be successful, that's not our story and that's not accurate. The issue is for you to share the good stories and the things that are happening, because that's the truth. You don't know how much time in my day I spend on negative, misleading, false things. And so that needs to happen. And I say the second thing is, I can only take the community to a certain point until the community has to stand up and say, this is what we want, this is what we demand, and this is what we expect. And so that accountability standard is not just in a classroom with teachers or principals. The accountability standard is really for our community to say, this is now the gold standard for what we expect in our schools, and hold us accountable. We can't continue to have that torch by ourselves. At some point, we have to have a community that says, this is what we expect, and will support along the way.
Thank you.
One more thing. On Timrod, I'm sure you can't say one thing did it, but what made that kind of phenomenal turnaround in a year?
You know, it could be a lot of different things. It's the only school we have that's year-round, and year-round schools and any kind of initiative takes about 3 years before you see some results. This is the end of year 3, the beginning of year 4, so I think that's part of it. And I give Dr. Bridges and Ms. McBride a lot of accolades for doing that. It's not easy to do, not sometimes well received. I think, if you ask me personally, I know the teachers worked hard, but it's about leadership. I mean, Ms. McBride is an unbelievable leader. It's about belief in her teachers, about belief in kids, having expectations. You know, she wrote me an email today and says, thank you for pushing me. And then when I said no, you pushed me even harder. And that's what it is. It's about setting expectations that may seem unrealistic, but I've always felt that kids have risen to those expectations. And that's the leadership and excitement. You know, her retention of staff is so high. So all these things, looking at her data, understanding kids, getting parents to be involved, I think that's one of the reasons why a year-round school is important, because it's got such a great community. I would challenge anyone in this room probably, if you can tell me where actually Tim Rod is. Most people don't even know where Tim Rod is. Right? There's, other than the gentleman that was there are very few people, that understand. It's this school out in what they tell me is the country, out by Wilson, and it's just a hidden gem. And it was about me coming in and talking to the principal and saying, people want to hear your story. And unfortunately, it's only in these numbers that people really begin to recognize. And these numbers will come out on Tuesday, and I can tell you, on Wednesday, people are going to know where Tim Rod is. I can guarantee that, because people want to be around that. And that's pretty exciting for us. It's pretty exciting for that school. And a lot of people are going to be looking at how do we replicate that, not only in our district, but across the state. That's it. Thank you so much for having me. And being patient.